Delivery drivers of Reddit, what's the weirdest or most unforgettable thing that happened to you on the job?
So, I'm 21 now, but back in my senior year of high school, I delivered pizza for about 8 months. And honestly, it felt like I lived a whole lifetime's worth of weird in that short time. You think food delivery is just picking up pies and dropping them off? No, it was chaos. For starters, I inherited my delivery shift from a friend who had originally taken it over from this guy who, apparently, used to sell weed along with the pizza. I didn't know that at first. But one night I roll up to this house, hand the guy his pizza, and he just stands there waiting. Eventually, he asks me dead serious, "So where's the other stuff?" I was like, "What other stuff?" He got pissed. I had to explain that I wasn't running a side hustle and had no idea what he was talking about. He just muttered something, slammed the door, and that was that. Pretty sure he never ordered again. Then there were the tips. Some people were super generous. One guy gave me a $10 bill on top of the $5 he already tipped on his card, and threw in a wink for good measure. I just smiled and left quickly. But the weirdest delivery? Definitely the party house. It was this massive house, probably 10 cars parked out front, music blaring. I had like $100 worth of pizza in the bag, and no one was answering the door. I rang the bell. Knocked. Nothing. I could literally hear people inside. So I start walking around the side of the house, and I spot an open window on the second floor. No screen, just open. And through it I can see a bunch of people, college kids, hanging out and yelling over music. I shout up, "Oh, your pizza's here." Took a few tries, but eventually someone heard me and came down. No apology, no explanation. Just a half-drunk guy stumbling to the door, taking the food like it was completely normal for pizza to arrive via window screaming. And then there were the guys who answered the door in boxers. A lot more than you'd expect. Usually polite, sometimes very generous, and other times just trying way too hard to flirt. But not everyone was nice. The worst tippers? Kids I actually knew from school. Like same grade, same classes, and they tipped me 43 cents. One time a guy handed me 2 dimes and a nickel like he was doing me a favor. On the flip side, there was this one sweet moment I'll never forget. I delivered to this young teenage boy, maybe 13, who was clearly babysitting. He looked totally overwhelmed. The total was $25, and he handed me a $50 bill. I told him, "Hey, I think you meant to give me a 20, but he just shook his head and said, "No, it's fine," and shut the door before I could argue. So, kept it. Sorry, kid. If that was your mom's money, I hope she never found out. Honestly, every shift had something new. Delivering pizza as a teenage girl was wild. But hey, free stories for life.
Story 2. I've been doing food deliveries for a little over a year now. You'd think after a while you've seen it all. People answering the door in towels, weird smells coming from sketchy apartment hallways, dogs trying to bite your ankle through a gate. But last month, something happened that absolutely broke my weirdest delivery ever scale. It was a regular afternoon. Sunny, quiet, suburban neighborhood. I was cruising on my e-bike with a warm bag of Thai food strapped to the back. Everything was chill. GPS says I'm about 5 minutes from the drop-off, and I'm thinking about grabbing a drink after this run. Then, right as I turn onto this residential street, I see a pig, just standing there, middle of the road, big, pink, and looking at me like I just insulted its whole family. I slow down, thinking maybe it escaped from a yard or something. Before I can even process what I'm looking at, 3 more pigs pop out of the bushes. Then 5 more. I kid you not, 10 pigs. Real, live pigs. No fence. No leashes. No humans. Just me, my e-bike, and a small pork army. First, they're just staring, like they're trying to decide whether I'm food or a threat. I gently try to back up. They start walking toward me, slowly, like they've done this before. So I speed up a bit. They speed up too. Now I'm not saying they were sprinting or anything, but the confidence? Terrifying. Like I was the main character in a farm-themed horror film. I take a sharp corner to get some distance, and in the chaos, one of the food containers slips out of the bag and hits the pavement. That was my fatal mistake. The pigs swarmed it like it was the last meal on earth, snorting, grunting, pushing each other out of the way. Total feeding frenzy. I'm pedaling like crazy at this point. Finally put about 30 meters between us, and just when I think I'm safe, I glance over my shoulder. One of them is sniffing my back wheel. I was this close to being overthrown by livestock. Then, out of nowhere, a guy comes out of a house nearby, holding a plastic bucket, and starts calling them, like casually, as if this happens all the time. "Come here, girls. Let's go." And they followed him. No argument, like he was their weird little pig cult leader. I don't know if he was the actual owner or just had some kind of pig whisperer energy, but I wasn't about to question it. I just nodded at him, completely out of breath, and rode off. When I finally got to the customer's house, I was late and one meal short. I apologized and said, "Look, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I got chased by a group of pigs and they ate part of your order." He looked at me for a second, dead serious, and goes, "That's the best excuse I've heard in 3 years. 5 stars. No tip. Totally worth it." Story 3.
I was delivering pizzas part-time to help cover the bills. I was newly married, and my wife was pregnant with our first, so every extra dollar mattered. Funny enough, I was actually making more money delivering pizzas part-time than I was full-time in the military. One evening, I got a delivery to this really upscale neighborhood, one of those parts of town where you just know the tips are going to be good. Big house, perfectly manicured lawn, the whole deal. I knock on the door and, yeah. A woman answers wearing nothing but a black bra and thong. Just standing there like it's the most normal thing in the world. She was stunning, like cover model level. And right behind her, 2 little kids were running around, totally unfazed, so clearly, this wasn't out of the ordinary for her. I was 21, trying so hard not to stare, but I was also blushing like crazy. She absolutely knew what she was doing, and the more uncomfortable I got, the more she played it up. Dropped her pen, bent over slowly to grab her purse, walked around like she was doing a catwalk in her living room. It was a whole routine. She paid for the pizza, gave me a generous tip, and just as I was about to leave, she leaned in, pinched my cheeks like a grandma would, and said, "You are too adorable." I got back in my car like, what just happened? Fast forward 2 weeks. I'm at work and my manager tells me I've got a delivery, and the customer specifically requested me by name. That almost never happens. So I grab the order and start driving, and sure enough, I realize I'm headed right back to the same house. This time, she opens the door wearing nothing but a pair of heels. That's it. Nothing else. At that point, my brain just short-circuited. I'm pretty sure I said something completely stupid, but I couldn't tell you what it was. She was clearly enjoying every second of my awkwardness. She went through the whole bending over routine again, slow turns, dramatic stretches, you name it. Like I was the audience and she was putting on a private show. She pays, tips again, and right before I go, same move, reaches out, pinches my cheeks, and gives me this mischievous grin. So I go back to the store and tell my boss, thinking he's gonna think I'm nuts. And yeah, he totally doesn't believe me. Just laughs it off. But then, 2 weeks later, again, I get another delivery, requested by name. I already know who it is. So I tell my manager, it's her again. He doesn't believe me, but he's curious enough to ride along. I had blacked out windows in my car, so he hides in the passenger seat while I go up to the door. Sure enough, she answers, same heels, same performance. She does the entire routine again like clockwork. I come back to the car, and my boss is just sitting there in silence. Finally, he says, I'm riding with you for every delivery to this house from now on. And that's what happened. Every couple of weeks, same address, same situation. This went on for 3 whole months. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, I never crossed any lines. I never went inside, never said anything inappropriate. I was married, my wife was pregnant, and I wasn't about to mess up my life. I needed the money, and honestly, the situation was so bizarre it almost didn't feel real. I ended up telling my wife years later, once we were way past all that. At the time, I didn't want her feeling insecure or worried while she was pregnant. And now? We've been married over 20 years and she just laughs about it. Says it sounds like something out of a cheesy movie. So yeah, if you think delivering pizza is all boring routes and cold tips, think again. Sometimes it's a side hustle, and sometimes it's a sitcom.
Story 4.
I've only been delivering pizza for, like, a month and a half, and I already have a story that feels straight out of a movie. So it's a normal night. Nothing crazy on the app. I've got a couple deliveries to run. I grab a pizza, hop in the car, and head out to this residential neighborhood. Quiet street. Looks peaceful enough. But as I get closer, I start seeing lights, like a lot of flashing lights. I turn the corner and boom. 3 fire trucks, 2 police cars, and a couple ambulances all parked in front of this one house. And not just hanging out, everything is active. Sirens, hoses, smoke pouring out the windows. Full-blown house fire. Flames coming out of the roof. And where's my delivery? Literally next door. I pull up and double-check the address, thinking there's no way they're still expecting pizza right now. But the GPS says I'm at the right house, and the fire's not their house, technically so. I get out of the car with the pizza box in hand and start walking toward the door. Carefully, mind you, because I'm about 5 meters away from a house actively on fire. As I reach the front step, the door swings open and 2 girls are standing there, looking a little confused, clearly hearing the chaos next door, but still wondering if I'm there for them. And I just kind of blurt out, good evening. Here's your pizza. Also, your neighbor's house is on fire." They both turn their heads, finally really noticing the burning house like it hadn't fully registered yet. One of them just goes, "Wait, seriously?" and runs to the fence to look. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there with the pizza box like, yep, I guess I'll just leave this here then. Honestly, it was surreal. I've done less than 2 months of deliveries and already found myself handing off a pepperoni special with a full emergency scene playing out 5 steps away. Never thought fire zone would be part of the job description, but here we are.
Story 5. A few years back, I worked as a delivery driver during winter. And one of the moments that stuck with me the most isn't about a funny customer or a huge tip. It's about something much quieter, and honestly, it still kind of haunts me. That evening, I had a ton of orders. The weather was rough, snow, ice, cold winds. I pulled up to this big, older house in a quiet neighborhood. Just a normal delivery. Pizza, a few sides, nothing special. I walked up, rang the doorbell, and as soon as the door opened, a small dog, some kind of terrier, shot out like a missile. It bit my leg, hard. Even though I had thick winter pants on, it left a solid mark. I stumbled back, trying not to drop the food, and the guy at the door ran over, grabbed the dog, and started apologizing right away. "Sorry," he said. "It's not even my dog. I didn't expect that." He looked exhausted. At first, I thought he meant the dog belonged to a neighbor or something. But then he added, "It's my dad's dog. He's inside. We're just waiting." At first, I didn't get it. Then he explained his father was dying. Right there, inside the house. Surrounded by family. Just waiting for him to pass. They'd been sitting with him for over a day, and the food I brought was just something to help them hold it together. No one had the energy to cook or even think straight. His voice was steady. No tears, no breakdown. But I could tell he just needed to talk. Not to family, not to someone who was in the thick of it with him, but to a stranger. Someone outside of the grief. Someone who would just listen. And I'm the kind of person who wants to be that someone. I wanted to let him talk, to ask more, to just stay there for a minute and let him feel heard. But then I glanced at the time. I was mid-shift, behind on deliveries, and still had a stack of orders to get through. As much as it pained me, I did what the job demanded. I nodded, wished him strength, and walked away. Now, years later, I think about that moment more than I probably should. I think about how life sometimes throws something deep and heavy at you in the middle of the most routine task, and how easy it is to walk past it. I had a chance to be present for someone, and I didn't take it. Maybe it wouldn't have made any difference. Maybe 5 minutes of small talk wouldn't have mattered at all. But damn, part of me still wishes I'd stayed just a little longer. Story 6. This happened to my boyfriend a few years back when he was working as a courier for a company that delivered magazines to local shops. His shift started ridiculously early. He'd be out on the road by 4 a.m., making stops before most people were even awake. One of his regular drops was this small, independently owned store on the outskirts of town. Since it wasn't open that early, he'd just leave the boxes by the back door, as per their arrangement. That morning started off like any other. He pulled up, turned off the van, grabbed a box from the back, and took it over to the door. Took maybe a minute, but when he walked back to the van, he froze. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. It was still dark out. No one else around. No lights, no cars, just silence. My boyfriend shouted something like, "Hey, get out of there." But he didn't move closer. Something about the way the guy was just sitting there felt wrong. Then it escalated. The man suddenly jumped out and started sprinting straight at him. In his hands was something big and metallic, catching what little light there was. My boyfriend didn't wait to find out what it was. He turned and ran, adrenaline kicking in instantly. The guy chased him. He bolted around the side of the building, looped around to the other side, and managed to circle back to the van before the guy could catch up. He jumped in, slammed the door shut, and took off just as the man reached him. And then impact. A loud, brutal crash against the windshield. The glass spiderwebbed instantly but held together. My boyfriend could barely see, but he drove blind for a few blocks until he felt it was safe to pull over. When he stepped out and looked at the damage, he nearly collapsed. Lodged in the windshield, no exaggeration, was a full-sized axe. A real, heavy, wood-handled axe. Embedded right where his head would have been if he hadn't made it back to the van a second earlier. He was shaking so badly he couldn't even call for help. He ended up flagging down a passing car, and they brought him to a gas station where they contacted the police. Officers showed up, took his statement, checked the area. But the guy? Gone. No witnesses, no security cameras, nothing. Just a ghost in the dark with a weapon and bad intentions. It messed him up for a while. After that, he never left the engine running and always locked the doors, even if he was just stepping out for a second. If he had a night route, he kept something heavy within reach. Not out of paranoia, but because once someone's tried to bury an axe in your skull, you stop assuming the world is a safe place. You don't really prepare for the moment someone tries to kill you during a magazine drop-off. But once it happens, you're never the same.